Today I'm going to discuss a topic which I had started on last time, known as specification. Last time I defined what specification is, types of specification. Today, I'm going to continue with the contents of specification and the components of specification. And later, I will make sure that I send you notes about this topic. But for today's lecture, at the end of it all, I will send a recording on your WhatsApp group so that you can listen. Then later I will send notes. I've been sending notes, but not particularly on this topic of specification. I hope you've been reading through the notes that I sent on your WhatsApp group. That's the strategy I'm using. Not to send the whole handout, but send it in parts so that you can read, conceptualize, and you ask where you don't understand. Even you can ask me or using your my WhatsApp. I mean, you can even ask from your WhatsApp group. You can text to me individually for any clarification. So last time we said the specification is a detailed description of the goods and services required and the forms of an invitation to supply or invitation for expression of interest. The specification should reflect the needs of the customer and the user group. The needs of the customer and the user group or the intended beneficiaries are all reflected in the specification. The process for requesting an invitation to supply should only commence after all the requirements are clear and well defined. Because if the organization has not yet clearly stipulated what about its needs in the specification we are talking about, then the supplier cannot really provide the goods, the needed goods and services. The specifications must be clear on the quantity and even it includes quantity of the goods and services and even other issues like time, etc. This is to ensure that all the potential suppliers have a clear guideline to follow. Firstly, when quoting on goods and services, and secondly, when carrying out their contractual agreement, if they are the successful supplier, because it is a process, the process of selecting the best supplier. I will also teach you that topic later, which we call supplier sourcing, picking the best supplier with the necessary requirements, and this supplier must also be given guidelines on what type of goods and services to supply to the organization. The contents of the specification must not restrict competition by including bias that favors a particular supplier. That's why in purchasing, we say that in picking the best supplier, there must be non-discrimination and fair competition. It should not act as a barrier to the introduction of alternative products for new and advanced technology. It should encourage suppliers to offer innovative options or solutions that contribute to the department's ability to carry out its business in a more cost-effective manner, and it should support standardization of the end product. A professional specification should include clear, it should be clear, concise and precise, not too wordy, but too concise, brief, but also not too brief. Brief, but long enough to cover the content. Function and performance terms only unless specific technical requirements are needed. It should contain enough information for vendors, supplier, at times we call suppliers vendors, to be able to appropriately determine the cost of goods and services. Let us look at the actual components of specification. What is contained in the specification? Already I've said the specification is a detailed description of the goods and services required, and it forms part of an invitation to supply or invitation for expression of interest documents. So what is contained in the specification that we are talking about? The first one Contents of the specification include the following. We are looking at the contents, not contents, components of specification. The specification, as I've already defined it, and let us look at what it contains of the components. Number one, introduction. As you are writing a specification of the goods and services you require, which must be included in the invitation supply the actual goods and services by the supplier, you must, in that document you are writing, the first component is called introduction, introducing about the organization that wants the goods and services. How much does it want? At what price? Time lag. So there must be an introduction. If it is out, then you know I want stationary, and it wants of this type, and it wants it within a month, and how much. That is introduction. Number two, scope and context. Number three, statement of requirements. Number four, other documents required relevant to the requirement, service conditions and environmental factors, technology systems and management techniques, because it may want to purchase online, or it may want to get the needed goods and services physically. Quality requirements of what quality? Occupational health, safety and welfare, all of life support, security measures relevant to the requirement, training requirements, documentation required from the supplier. Then transit requirements, implementation timetable, glossary, and attachments. What should not be included in a specification? What I have mentioned above, I can repeat them, are the components of a specification: an introduction, scope and context, statement of requirements, other documents relevant to the requirement, service conditions and environmental factors, technology systems and management techniques, quality requirements, occupational health, safety and welfare, whole of life support, security measures relevant to the requirement, training requirements, documentation required from the supplier. Then in transition requirements, implementation timetable, glossary. Glossary is like, it contains like, it's like a summary of the above attachments. Then what should not be included in the specification? Conditions of tender. Conditions of tender here we mean, this is like an agreement made between the organization and the vendor or supplier, and the conditions are stipulated in the agreement about the terms of service, but these ones are not needed in a specification. Conditions of contract are not needed. Bias favoring one supplier against the other, because I've said specifications should promote non-discrimination and competition, not bias. Questionnaires used by tenders, supply offers must not be included in the specification. Aspects which may lead to discrimination, either directly or indirectly, to particular suppliers, over specified requirements, and disclosure of allocated budgets. Now, let us look at the importance of a clear specification. Why is a specification document that requests for the supply of goods and services so important? Number one, they help consult with the end users of the proposed goods and services to be purchased and ensure that their requirements are incorporated into the specification. Specification helps you to inquire from the end users, the beneficiaries, about the type of goods and services to be purchased. If not, then it means you are going to purchase goods and services and they will not be used because you have not consulted the user departments. Number two, it helps to carry out research, the